For Mike's movie today, I'm going to show how to build a fire. We're going to go through all the steps that are necessary to build a fire safely and effectively. Fires are great for campouts, they're great for the backyard. They bring a good spirit into the environment, and it's a good place to sit around and talk, associate, look up into the sky and stare into the unknown, and just have a good time. And we're going to talk today about how to build a fire safely and effectively. To start with, the first thing you need is an axe. For our demonstration today, we're going to be using a hatchet actually, which is a little bit smaller than an axe. A hatchet can be a very useful tool to use when you're building a fire. It can also be very, very dangerous. This is the blade of the hatchet. This is where all the work is done. This is the butt right here. This whole thing is made of metal and it's very, very heavy. And this is the handle right down here that you hold on to the axe with. Because an axe is so heavy and because of how it's used, it can be very dangerous both to the person who is using the axe. It can damage my leg or my foot or any part of my body. It can also be very dangerous to the people who are around me. So when I'm using an axe, there's certain rules you need to follow to protect yourself and to protect those around you. The first thing to know, protecting people around you, is anybody who's going to, whenever you're using an axe, no one should come inside of your blood circle. What that means is if you hold on to the head of the axe right here, or the hatchet in this case, and make a circle all the way around like this, no one should be within that circle at all. If they are, they're too close and they may get hurt. Second thing, protecting yourself. Anytime you're using a hatchet to cut wood, you want to chop straight down in front of you. You want to keep your legs separated like this, so that if you miss, you come down like that and it goes between your legs. If you're chopping like that with one foot in front of you and you go like that, it can come down like that and it can hit you in the leg or the foot. So you want to keep your legs separated. Because we're using a hatchet and because the handle is so short, I'm going to be kneeling down for this demonstration and spreading my knees apart like this, chopping like this. When you use an axe, you want to hold it with both hands like this, and you want to come straight down on whatever you're chopping. Okay, let's get to work. There are 4 basic things you need to start a fire. 4 different types of fuel, that is, that you need to start a fire. The first one is called kindling is the first thing that you need. Kindling, you can look right here. Kindling is stuff that catches fire very easily, such as dry weeds or dry leaves or a piece of paper or some kind of, I have some newspaper and some leaves. You could also use dryer lint, lots of different things that you can use. This starts very, very easily. The next thing you need is called kindling. I have a few examples of kindling here. These are really small, very, very dry pieces of wood that will catch fire easily and stay burning long enough to catch the rest of the wood on fire. So these are the bigger pieces of wood that will stack onto the stack once this has started. And then the last thing you need, last bit of fuel that you need, is some way to start the fire. Today I'm just going to use some kitchen matches. It's a simple way to start a fire. You could also use flint and steel. Sometimes you can use a magnifying glass. You can use a bow to build up friction heat and do it that way. So I'm going to now show you how to make these 2 things, the kindling, or the tinder and the wood. Okay, first thing you need is a piece of wood and you need a hatchet. To chop this, you're going to start, put the piece of wood on a hard surface of some kind where it will stay stable. I'm going to kneel down because I'm using a hatchet like I said before. And when you chop this, you come straight down, just like that. And it chops off a piece of the wood, just like that. as your wood gets smaller and smaller, as you chop this, you'll get smaller and smaller pieces of wood, just like this. I can use this now. This is an example of kindling. This is something that I would put on the, or excuse me, this is the example, just a little bit bigger piece of wood than the kindling. I can use this to make some kindling. What I need to do is very carefully get this on a hard surface, and I can chop down into this, and that'll cut little pieces off like that. And I can take each of these small pieces now, I can use each of these little small pieces. Let me do another one.
Okay. How about let's talk like ourselves?
I can get little pieces off like that. I've already made some of these right here. I just keep going like that until I make small little pieces. Okay. I'm going to start making the fire now, and I'm going to do it using the TP method. The first thing we need is a piece of paper. That's what we're going to use today. This is our kindling that we're going to use. So I'm going to just open this up and wad it up, just like that. I'm going to place it right here in the center of the area where the fire is going to be built. Next, I'm going to take some of this kindling that I made before, and I'm just going to scatter this kindling all around this piece of paper. Like I said before, these are just very fine pieces of wood that I chopped off of that larger piece of wood. I made several of these, and I'm just going to stack them up here. Like I said before, this wood has to be very, very dry. That's something very important to look at when you're selecting the piece of wood that you're going to use to make your fire with. You want to make sure that it's extremely dry. Brett, just a minute, buddy. Just a minute, okay? So, this is called TP because as you can see, all these pieces of wood are just being stacked up onto the central piece, or onto the kindling that I have in the center, and it just kind of ends up looking like a teepee, is what it ends up looking like. And the idea here is that as this kindling catches fire in the center, because all this kindling is, the tinder is built up around it, it channels the heat of the fire up towards the center. So you start putting things on it, and it centralizes the fire, is what it does. So it's right in the center of the area where you want the fire to be. It focuses it. So I've got that all up. I've got that built up pretty good. That is going to make a great fire start. Just like that. Okay, so there's our teepee. Next step, we want to take our matches right here, just like this. See, Brett, we're making a fire, buddy. We're going to take our match right here. The side of the box has a strike edge, so I'm just going to strike that on there. Hold it so that the fire keeps going on the match. Hold it up like that. And once that gets going, light, in this case, the paper or whatever you're using as you're kindling, light that on fire. And as you can see, that fire just centralizes. It starts growing up that way, just following where the fuel is at. And as that builds and as that grows, you come in with your larger, gradually larger pieces of wood and stack them on. Just like that. At the end of the night, it's time to go to bed. What do you do with a campfire? You've enjoyed a great night by it, and you've had just a marvelous time with your friends, your family, or your scout troop, or whoever you're with. You just go to bed? No. You got to deal with the fire. It's still going. We're going to talk about how to put the fire out. Easiest, most simple way to put out fire is you got to put on something to get rid of the oxygen. Fires need oxygen and fuel in order to be able to burn and keep going. So you can throw dirt on there sometimes if you don't have anything else, or if you don't want to waste water. You can also just dump some water on there, which is what we're going to do right now. So I've just got a bucket. Typically, when you go on a camp out, you're going to want to make sure you have enough water to be able to put out the fire when you're done with the camp. You got to bring excess for that. That's something you got to plan ahead for. So very simple. You'll just take the water right here, and it's going to start smoking like crazy. I'm going to dump this all over the wood, all over the fire. And in this case, we have a basin here that's going to catch and hold all the water. On a camp out, you're not always going to have that basin. It's just going to be on the ground in a fire pit, which means that this water will just soak into the ground, which is good because the ground gets very, very hot underneath it. You want to cool everything off. So you want to make sure, do your best to make sure that it's not even smoking anymore. And by the time you leave your camp, you should be able to go down, reach down, and touch things without getting burned. It should be cool enough that you can do that. That's how you put out a fire. So like I said at the beginning, campfires can be a lot of fun, whether it be on a camp with your troop or your family, or just here in your backyard like what we've been doing today. But fires can also be very, very dangerous, and most of the fires, or most of the danger with fire, has to do with how hot it gets. It's a lot of fun to sit here with a marshmallow roaster, roasting marshmallows, or a hot dog, or cooking your food over a fire. But as you take things in and out of the fire, you need to be very, very aware that there is a hot end on the other side of that marshmallow roaster. And so when you turn around, you don't want to just be flinging that thing around, asking someone to put a marshmallow or a hot dog on there. When you take something out of the fire, it's very, very, the safest thing to do is just to hold that straight up in the air. So when you turn around, it's just pointing straight up in the air. If you're going to turn around and put a marshmallow on your marshmallow roaster. In general, it's not a good idea to sit there at a fire with a stick and just burn it in the fire, because at some point you're going to forget that what you're holding, and you may turn away and you may hit somebody and burn somebody. You got to be very careful with footwear as well. Sometimes it's fun to put especially when you're on a winter camp, to put your shoes up by the fire's edge to warm them up or dry them off. Rubber on the soles of your shoes can melt, or the shoe itself can start on fire. You don't want to leave your shoe right by the fire. It will start on fire, or the sole will melt. Pants, particularly Levi's, you need to be careful. If they have little metal buttons on them and you're standing with your back to the fire, those metal buttons can get very, very hot. Very, very hot, and when you sit down, burn your backside. And that's not very fun. Other things to be safe with fire, like I mentioned before, is when you're preparing the fire with the axe. You got to be careful. Remember that blood circle. You want to be away from everybody. When you're swinging the axe, you want to make sure your legs are spread, so that if you miss, that axe goes between your legs. It doesn't hit your leg or your knee. So fires can be a lot of fun. They can create a lot of fun memories and be a great environment for a lot of good discussions. As long as you follow those basic safety rules and follow that basic protocol about how to build a fire, you're on your way to having some great nights camping.